there was a discussion as to whether or not or how much power the Supreme Court has in intervening when it comes to the impeachment process. Sir, we're not lawyers, sir, so we'll have to leave it to you to decipher for us. Pero, sir, from your point of view, I understand, from your point of view, hindi maaari nang makialam ang Korte Suprema pag napasok na sa Kongreso at Senado ang impeachment.
Tama po yan dahil sa ating saligang batas ang Senado has the sole power to hear and decide impeachment cases. Sa prinsipyo po ng separation of powers ay hindi dapat makialam ang Korte Suprema doon po sa trial ng impeachment dahil po ang sasaligang batas yan po ay sole prerogative ng Senado.
Pero sir, if I may sir, kasi there appears to be some precedent here kasi I think it was 2011, panahon ni Pinoy, dun sa kaso ni Mercy Gutierrez when she was being impeached. The Supreme Court was petitioned to intervene by Mercy Gutierrez, and the Supreme Court did step in, although in favor of Congress. Pero po, nagdesisyon ng Korte Suprema na, I think in that case, ang sabi ng Korte Suprema, walang violation doon sa 1-year ban ng initiation ng impeachment process versus Mercy Gutierrez. And I think doon among other places na established na kailangan ka munang umabot doon sa Justice Committee yung impeachment complaint for it to be called initiated.
Pero di ba technically hindi naman talaga intervention 'yon ng Supreme Court?
Hindi ko alam. Hindi ako bagado. Pero sir, how should we view all these things? For example, may 2011 decision.
I'm sorry, but you're garbled. I cannot hear you very well. The issue of Gutierrez became academic dahil po nag-resign siya at hindi na binuo yung impeachment court.
Yes, sir. Sir, I'm referring to GR 193459 where the Supreme Court in 2011 ruled na hindi na violate ng Kongreso yung 1-year ban versus the initiation of impeachment complaint.
Sa akin po, ang jurisdiction sa impeachment trial ay ang impeachment court. At yun pong proseso, kagaya ng mga question on whether or not a 1-year rule is violated. Sa akin po, dapat ang impeachment court ang magdedesisyon yan. Dahilan po, hindi naman ang sinasabi natin, ang impeachment court ay isang sui generis. One of its kind. Yeah. Hindi po ordinaryong ahensya ito at ito po yung Senado na binuo bilang impeachment court. Kaya sa akin, on the principle of separation of powers, dapat hindi papasukan ng Korte Suprema yung mga bagay tungkol sa impeachment trial.
Senator, you're talking about the rules. Rules siya ng impeachment na siguro papasok dito sa final ni Vice President Duterte doon sa 4th impeachment complaint against her. Pero meron ding may isa pang petition sa Supreme Court na gustong ipa-define yung constitutional provision na kailangan mag-trial forthwith. Yung sa ganun ba, pwede bang pumasok ang Supreme Court just to interpret the meaning, yung constitutional sense ng Constitution sa pagkakalagay na yon ng forthwith? Pwede ba nilang pasukan yon? Hindi nila pwedeng utusan, you're saying na hindi nila pwedeng utusan yung Senate na ituloy nyo yan o ganito-ganito. Pero can they interpret that? Kasi constitutional issue, di ba? Yan yung pinag-uusapan. Ano ba ibig sabihin ng forthwith?
Kaya Ami, kitang-kita natin na maraming tanong na walang sagot dahilan sa circumstansya na inihain yung articles of impeachment on the last day of the session. Kaya sa akin po, ang solusyon lahat dito ay tumawag na ng Pangulo ng special session para mabuo yung impeachment court at pagkaroon na ng trial and forthwith, sabi nga ng saligang batas, to try the case forthwith. Ang problema ngayon, wala pong impeachment court dahil hindi tumatawag ng special session ang Pangulo at dahil walang session, walang impeachment court. Kaya po maraming mga iba't ibang opinion tungkol dito because maraming mga circumstansya na ngayon lang natin makikita dahilan sa recess ang Kongreso at walang session.
SP Drilon, kahapon dun sa UP Law forum nyo, parang united naman kayo na ang ibig sabihin ng forthwith is
immediately.
Immediately. Pero may qualification si Teddy Te at saka si Ombudsman Carpio Morales. Nang sabi nila na yung recess is a reasonable delay. No? Baka pwede niyo ipaliwanag yung perspective niyo diyan.
Alam nyo, sa batas kami mga abogado, tinuturuan sa law school, give the words its ordinary meaning. Ang meaning ng forthright, ibig sabihin kaagad pag you immediately hear the case. Forthwith. You immediately hear the case. Wala pong exception na nakalagay sa batas except that that the impeachment court could not be constituted because walang session. Kaya po yung solution sa aking tingin, tumawag ng special session para itong lahat ng mga tanong na mahirap sagutin dahil sa iba't ibang interpretasyon ay magiging academic na po. Yan po ay tungkulin ng Pangulo at ng ating Senado na buuhin ang impeachment court immediately.
At consistent doon sa sinabi nyo kanina, SP, yung sui generis, na itong mga consistent sa sinabi nyo, SP, doon sa sui generis, na itong impeachment is unique, no? One of its kind, which means na yung usual schedules ng Senado, like recess, doesn't apply. Dahil nga iba ito eh. No, hindi ito yung usual legislative process.
That's correct po. Kaya pag pagtawag ng special session, ang una pong item sa agenda ay ang impeachment, articles of impeachment na hinain ng House of Representatives.
Sir, sir, if you don't mind, sir, let me give you a hypothetical. Kasi kami mga ordinary non-lawyers, ang tingin namin sa Korte Suprema is the final arbiter. I suppose even the lawyers look at it that way. But what if the Supreme Court intervenes in a case or a petition involving the impeachment process? What if the Supreme Court intervenes? Who gets the last say? And who will decide?
Like what intervention?
Kaya nga, may mga reglamento tayo, Ed, na mayroong prinsipyong separation of powers. Kasi theoretically, pag hindi sununod ng Senado, ang utos ng Korte Suprema, yun po ba pwede mong i-contempt ang buong Senado, ang wala 24 na senador? Kaya po may prinsipyo, you exercise judicial restraint by refusing to take cognizance of kasong mga ganito under the principle of separation of powers dahil magkapantay po ang Senado at saka ang Korte Suprema.
Senator, ang sabi ng Malacanang, magtatawag daw si President Marcos ng special session pag hiningi ng mga senador. Ang sabi naman ng mga senador, it's up to the Senate President daw kung magtatawag ng special session. Kayo, you being a former Senate President, ano po yung tingin niya doon? Talaga bang it's really just up to the Senate President dahil ayaw niya?
Lahat po yan ay hindi ko maintindihan kung bakit maraming theory. Simple lang po, ang Pangulo ng ating bansa ay siya lamang po ang makakadetermine kung tatawag ng special
Special session.
Hindi po kailangan na hilingin ng mga senador.
Yes.
Hindi kailangan na any other circumstance. The power to call the special session is the sole prerogative of the President. And to me, he can even say, tatawag ako ng special session in order that the Senate can perform its constitutional duty to constitute itself into an impeachment court immediately. Wala pong illegal doon. Dahilan ang kapangyarihan ng Pangulo to call a special session is absolute. Hindi po kailangan na hilingin ng Senado ang special session.
At sa ating
Absolute po, kasi yung isang opinion, pwede lang daw yan kung legislation. Iba daw yung impeachment. Kapag doon daw sa he can call a special session for a legislative act, saka lang magkakaroon ng impeachment court. Yun naman yung isa pa ring opinion. What do you think of that?
Di ba Senate President, walang qualification?
Ang pagpapalit ng pangalan ng isang kalsada ay legislative matter. Ibig sabihin, pwedeng tumawag ng special session dahil ibig palitan ang pangalan ng kalsada, ngunit hindi pwedeng tumawag ng special session in order to constitute an impeachment court. Wala po sa akin yan. Wala po sa saligang batas na limit ang kapangyarihan ng Pangulo to call a special session. Wala pong nakalagay, basta the President can call a special session at any time. Nakalagay. Walang
Qualification.
limitasyon kung ano ang dapat talakayin sa special session.
Walang qualification, SP. Di ba? Walang qualification sa Constitution.
Walang qualification.
Sir, if I may, one more hypothetical. Sorry, pero puro ako hypothetical kasi hindi kami abogado. Pero one more hypothetical, sir. Is it possible na, because nga only the Senate has the sole prerogative to convict or to acquit an official on impeachment charges. I mean, I think that's a given naman eh. Everybody agrees with that. But is it possible that the Supreme Court could have authority as far as the procedure or the processes involved in the impeachment or the constitutional issues with regard to the process of impeachment, but not on the vote itself? Meaning, in the end, it still is going to be the senator judges who will decide on guilt or innocence, but that the Supreme Court could have some prerogative or some leeway with regard to procedural matters?
Like what?
For example nga, the Merceditas Gutierrez issue on whether or not may violation ng 1-year ban on initiation.
Ed, ang kay Gutierrez, ang interpret ng Supreme Court, yung 1-year period kung kailan mag-uumpisa.
Yes, sir.
Hindi po yung bagay ng mga dapat tatalakayin sa impeachment complaint. So, hindi po applicable yan in the case of whether or not the President can call a special session. Iba po yan. Ito, nandun na sa Senado at ang issue kailangan ba mag-convene na as an impeachment court? Hindi po makakonvene as an impeachment court dahilan sa walang session ang Kongreso. At ang solution po, pag-usapan natin ang solution, sa aking tingin, ay dapat magkaroon ng special session.
Yes, sir.
Para lahat itong tanong na ito ay maging academic lang.
SP, sabi ni Senate President Chis Escudero, ang kanyang basihan sa pagpapatawag ay public clamor. Yung ba ang issue rito, public clamor, o talagang trabaho ng Senate President na mag-convene? No? Kailangan bang hintayin yung public clamor muna?
Sa akin po, with all due respect to my friend Chis, wala pong kailangan na public clamor. Titingnan lang natin ang ating saligang batas. At sa ating saligang batas, wala pong limitasyon ang kapangyarihan ng Pangulo na tumawag ng special session. At pag nagtawag ng special session, obligatory po na i-calendar yung impeachment complaint.
Sir, may pahabol pa ako.
Pwede ba akong...
Ami, go ahead, sige. Good. Ami, ikaw muna.
Hindi, gusto ko mag-change topic.
Ay, teka.
Sige, tapusin mo muna impeachment.
Yung muna, yung pahabol mo.
Sir, so in effect, Bali, sir, what you're saying is that all these petitions filed with the Supreme Court with regard to impeachment are being filed with the wrong venue because the Supreme Court should not have already any more jurisdiction over these issues because gumulong ng impeachment na-impeaching yung isang tao and therefore it has to move forward now without intervention from the Supreme Court. If that is correct, sir, then what happens if the Supreme Court does take cognizance and does take steps over these petitions? Like it already asked the Senate to file its comment within 10 days dun sa petition for the Senate to be forced or to be made to convene already immediately.
Well, yung filing po ng comment, yan po ay matter of course na hinihingi ng husgado. It doesn't touch on the merits of the case. It just it's not a decision on the merits of the case or the lack of merit. It is just a procedural matter that a comment is requested of the other party when the petition is filed. So wala pong epekto yan.
Yes, sir. Pero sir, yun nga, what if it moves forward? What if the Supreme Court eventually, in the next few, after the comments are filed, what if the Supreme Court calls for oral hearings, oral debates, and then makes a ruling? Where does that put us na?
Well, calling an oral argument again is not a decision on the case. It's just to help the court determine what should be done correctly.
It is not yet intervention.
Okay.
Okay.
So, Senator,
No, it's
related
not an
dyan.
intervention. Hindi intervention po yan. Hindi the pina-comment at nag-set ng oral that the Supreme Court has decided to decide on the case. Hindi po yan ang sitwasyon. And the fact that the case is that comment is required or that an oral argument is called does not in any way affect the issue of whether or not the court has jurisdiction to entertain the petition.
Okay, Ami.
Kasi related dyan, Senator, yung itatanong ko Kasi nag-set na rin siya ng oral arguments on the petitions questioning the constitutionality of the 2025 General Appropriations Act sa April. Saka yung mga petitions involving the Maharlika Investment Fund. So, ang tanong ko, pareho nung kay Ed nga, the Supreme Court has taken cognizance. Paano kung magdesisyon na in favor of the petitioners sa GAA na muna, dun sa budget na muna? Anong mangyayari dun sa budget kapag dineclare na unconstitutional ng Supreme Court?
Well,
Anong mangyayari sa atin?
Kung ma-declare unconstitutional yung 2025 General Appropriations Act, ang ibig lang sabihin, ang 2024 General Appropriations Act ay maging effective ulit dahil sa yung nakalagay po yan sa ating saligbatas. Ang failure to pass a budget will mean that the previous year's budget is reenacted. Yun po sa specific sa ating batas, sa ligang batas. At kung sakali man, sasabihin ng Korte Suprema, ng 2025 General Appropriations Act ay invalid dahil sa hindi sinunod ang saligang batas, yung 2024 General Appropriations Act ang magiging manatili at siyang ang basihan ng paggastos ng pera ng taong bayan.
Di ba sobrang gulo nun? Kasi, syempre, nagamit na yun sa ibang project na implemented na in 2024.
Saka isang kwarto
Ang
na
matitira na lang
Tama
dyan,
po yan.
yung ang description, savings na lang.
Hindi.
Reenactment is disadvantageous to the economy kasi yung nagamit mong item na of authorization, ang proyekto na nagawa na, hindi mo pwedeng lagyan muli ng pera dahil nagawa na.
Yes.
Kaya yan po ang limitation dun po sa reenacted budget. The projects and activities which were already implemented can no longer be implemented again kasi naggastos na ang appropriation doon.
Saka walang pondo yung bagong project, di ba? The new projects na ang appropriation is under the 2025 GAA, they cannot get moving dahil walang pondo. Ganun ba yan?
Kung ba-declare na invalid yung 2025 budget, yung General Appropriations Act, yung mga project and activities na dapat punduhan doon po sa 2025 ay hindi na po pwedeng punduhan yan kasi invalid yung appropriation.
Kaya, Senate President, ang lalakas dyan ay yung role ng Presidente sa reenacted budget. Yung kanyang discretionary powers ay lalakas. Kaya very powerful ang Presidente sa isang reenacted budget.
Tama po yan. At I can tell you from my personal experience, nung ako po'y Pangulo ng Senado, nangyari na pinakiusapan ako na huwag mo nang ipasa ang budget para magkakaroon ng reenacted budget.
Ay, teka.
Several times yata nangyari yan.
Ako, I am testifying on my own personal knowledge dahil akong sinabihan.
Ang daming,
Sir,
ang daming,
anong taon yan, sir? Anong taon
ang daming-
yan?
Pero natuloy, di ba?
ang daming
Talagang
reenacted.
nagkaroon ng reenacted budget several times. Nagkaroon ng reenacted budget.
Panahon ni GMA, marami.
Nagkaroon ng reenacted budget.
Panahon ni GMA, marami yan.
Kaya nga eh. Wala nang
Look at that
remedyo yan.
smile.
Paano na yun? That's an entire year na wala kang budget.
Hindi naman,
Di ba pwedeng gagawa ng bago?
Pero hindi po maganda yan dahil sa ang latitude or ang discretion ng presidente
Malawak.
ay masyadong malawak sa isang reenacted budget. Dahil lahat na pundo na dapat gastusin doon sa mga bagong proyekto at sa mga proyektong dapat punduhan ay hindi po mapupunduhan at marami pong open-close quote savings. The discretion
Yes, yun na
of
nga.
the president becomes absolute. So, hindi po maganda. At sa ating ekonomiya, hindi maganda po magkaroon ng reenacted budget dahil 25% ng ating ekonomiya ay funded by public spending.
Public spending.
Kung po budget, walang authority to spend. Yun ang problema. Except for salaries, for example, more recurring expenses. So, hindi po talaga maganda na hindi magkaroon ng budget for the current year.
practically, Senate President, yung power of the purse ng Congress will shift dramatically towards the
Executive.
President, the Chief Executive.
I agree. I agree po. Tama po yan. It will shift to the total or in a very substantial portion to the president.
So, am I getting this
So,
right
anong-
na the president has more to
Ano
gain
pwedeng
by...
remedyo dyan sa ano? Yun na nga, dahil namanggal nga yung National Expenditure Program at kung saan-saan napunta yung ano, mas malaki yung DPWH, education. Anong pwedeng remedyo without a reenactment of the budget?
Hindi ko po napag-aralan yan namin. Hindi ko kita masagot. Pero ang alam ko lang, reenacted budget, yung mga sweldo, for example,
Yes.
yan ay pwede mong punduhan. Ngunit yung mga proyektong bago ay hindi mo pwedeng
Wala
punduhan.
po.
So, yung mga proyekto na kailangan dagdag by dagdag na appropriation dahil kulang, hindi mo pwedeng dagdagan. Kaya malaking dagok po, malaking disadvantage sa ating economic situation pag nagkaroon ng reenacted budget.
Pero di ba SP, isa sanang solusyon o at least mitigation ng weaknesses ng GAA, ng budget, ay bago magdeklara yung Supreme Court ng whatever, alimbawa, yung possibility na i-declare siya unconstitutional, yung isang pwedeng gawin ng Presidente ay supplemental budget.
Yung supplemental, hindi pwedeng gawin ng presidente yun. Yung supplemental budget
No, I mean,
ay dapat
Congress.
ipasa din sa
Yes.
Kongreso yun.
Yes.
Congress.
Pero pwede niyang magbigay siya ng practical, tawag ba dyan?
Incentives.
Incentives para gawin ng Kongreso. Gamitin niya yung kanyang power para kumbinsin ang Kongreso na gawin.
Alam mo, hindi po pwede yan. Dahil hanggang hindi ba declare na unconstitutional yung kasalukuyang budget, ay yan po ang governing statute. Hindi mo po pwedeng palitan yan. Ngayon, kahit po mag-supplemental budget ka, hindi pa effective pa yung budget mo for the current year. Mahirap, hindi po pwedeng mag-supplemental ka. Anong i-supplement natin? Dahil mayroon pa namang appropriation, mayroon pang valid General Appropriations Act until declared otherwise by the Supreme Court.
Halimbawa, SP, kahit yung 12 billion na nawala sa DepEd, hindi pwedeng i-supplemental yon, no?
Ay, kung tutusin, pwede mo i-supplemental. Total, pwede mong gawin yung supplemental kasi technically, the releases of the funds is within the control of the President. It is the authorization na nasa Kongreso lang.
Sir, am I getting this right na in the event na mag-reenact tayo ng budget, let's call it a budget failure, enacted budget, the incumbent president would have more to gain in terms of political and financial power because of a enacted budget?
The president certainly has a wider leeway sa reenacted budget. Walang question dun.
Okay. Something to think about, no? Okay, sir. Maraming salamat, sir.
Maraming salamat, SP.
Okay.
Always a
Thank you,
pleasure having you, sir.
Thank you, Senator.
Former Senate President Franklin Drilon.